Hello there, World of Tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm, of course, your host, Noodle Blitz, and in today's video, we are going to be talking about the Tier 9 and Tier 8 auto-loading American heavies that will be coming in the next tree of World of Tanks Blitz, the M5 Yo and the M3 Yo. Now, personally, I find both of these vehicles just completely broken. The Tier 8 carries a 300 damage gun, but it's got, of course, 3 shells in the clip, which means it's dealing 930 damage in total, and it's got a 2.73 second injure clip, which means now this is the fastest injure clip for a 310 average damage gun in Tier 8. The vehicle's also got pretty good turret armor, and while the hull armor is very weak, it is still pretty dang ridiculous on how quick it's able to dump out the damage. I like to call this thing the Noodle because it's just such a slim tank. I really don't know what to say about this vehicle. The armor isn't great. The hull is pretty dang easy to penetrate, and the turret, while it is troll, you can penetrate the roof of it and the edges. But one thing that's going to make this vehicle literally broken is the gun. If you run the 120mm on this vehicle, while sure, the DPM's not great at 1900, what is amazing is the ability to deal 450 average damage with a quick succession of 2 shots in 1.71 seconds. I really don't know what Wargaming was thinking there and why they always mess up the balance of these Tier 9 vehicles when they come into Blitz. A good example of this would be like the Standard B, the Vickers CR. I don't know why. Just every new Tier 9 that comes into the game is for some reason always better than the Tier 10, and this is no exception. This gun here is literally the exact same gun on the Tier 10 Yo, just with, a 0.2 second longer intra clip and as well a little bit worse DPM, but the alpha is still exactly the same, and to I'm aware the accuracy and penetration is also exactly the same. And you're going to see that be very, very true in this gameplay. Now again, I do like the look of the new PBR textures. They look great, and I'm also jonesing over those track suspension physics where you can see clearly, and maybe not clearly, but the suspension does work. There's one shot into the M5 Yo, and there's another shot into the other Yo. They managed to just take the shot for his teammate. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know and do know is the fact that when you get tracked in the Yo, you're actually not tracked. This is the first tank in the game, or the first line in the game, that are untrackable vehicles. They can still reverse at a speed of 5 kilometers per hour. And granted, while it is slow, I definitely find it a little bit OP, not a little, very OP, the fact that they can continue the reverse. Now this is the armor of the Yo. As you can see, I'm using AP shells right now, and it really doesn't seem like it has that much armor, but at the same time, I'm already at 1700 damage. That is how quickly you're going to be able to rack up damage with this gun. Sure, it's going to be boring, and this is, again, one of the issues with this line in particular, is that just it is really boring, in my opinion, to play this vehicle and wait 20 seconds to only shoot twice in Tier 9, and then you gotta wait another 20 seconds, and then another 20. It does seem quite boring, at least in my opinion. On a Tier 10 playstyle, you kind of want to play a vehicle that's very exciting, able to either have high DPM, high damage, but I don't know, I just don't find this tank super exciting. It seems kind of boring, but here we go, aiming at the Tier 9. Now you can see that, again, the hull, as I said, is not extremely thick. It's troll, but it's not extremely thick. So because of that, got 2 shells out onto that Yo, able to deal another 900 damage. If you do angle the turret up, you are hiding the cupola in the back. But what's funny is that you actually make the lower part of the turret a weak spot. So when you're playing these vehicles, it's actually very tricky to try and use the turret armor. I would suggest just to wiggle it as much in back and forth, because showing the lower part of the turret is actually probably a bigger weak spot than just having them aim at your cupola. But overall, the armor isn't great. That is the Tier 8. You can see that the Tier 8 also doesn't have the most armor. It's decent, but it's not going to get the most bounces. Now, granted, this is about 260 millimeters of standard pen aiming at it, but yeah, the Tier 8 doesn't have the most turret armor, but for that game, as you can see, we did 3,589 damage, got 25,000 credits. The Tier 10, I've actually noticed, has a terrible, terrible credit coefficient. I don't know if Wargaming is going to fix that, but currently that is a huge issue for a vehicle like the Yo. Now, again, loading into one more battle now, we have got the Tier 8. Now, the Tier 8, I personally think, is ridiculously strong as well. The tier 9 is strong because of that 2-second 450 alpha. It's not like you're at tier 10 and you're dealing that damage. You're in tier 9 dealing the same damage as the tier 10. The tier 8 does the same damage as the tier 9, but of course it doesn't have that 1.7 second interclip. This vehicle's got a 2.7, so it takes a whole not two, but well, what was it, about 5.4 seconds to dump out the whole clip? I almost lost my brain there with a brain fart. But this vehicle seems pretty dang nice. It's decently quick. It looks weird, I will say that, but it is definitely the most normal looking out of all the vehicles in the line. Now, the hull armor is very weak. You can penetrate the lower plate and as well the upper plate very quickly, but this is where the vehicle is going to be crazy. That was 961 damage and he's dead. That was it. Just reload the clip now. And this vehicle's got pretty dang good DPM. It's got very good penetration. The mobility is not bad. Honestly, I think that if this vehicle's played correctly, it will be better than the Emil 1 just because of how good the clip is. So here we go again, aiming in on that VK. There's one shell into the VK. Here's two, and with that VK sitting at just a one shot for me, there's three. Now, obviously, my team was going to win this very easily either way, but it still proves the point of how quickly you can rack up damage in this vehicle. It's got a very, very high amount of damage per minute, which you wouldn't expect from a clipper. You know, if we take a look at the DPM, let's take a look. Yeah, it's about 2123 DPM, which, when you think about it, is very, very high for a tier 8 autoloader. When you look at vehicles like the Emil 1, I'm pretty sure that vehicle's about 2,000, so it's decent, but it's definitely not anywhere near this vehicle, especially because this thing's got a way, way better interclip. There you go, 1,953 DPM, so it's quite a bit better. It's almost 200 more DPM on this vehicle than a vehicle like the Emil 1. Now, finally, we have the Tier 7, the M7Yo. I don't actually have any games in this tank, and the reason for that being is because, well, nobody's playing Tier 7, and you just kind of get into a battle alone, and then you got to cap the base, and then play another game alone. So, the Tier 7, I played in a training room with it, and what do I have to say about it? Well, it's decent. The armor isn't great, and honestly, I can see if I can find the training room replay. Maybe that'll be better. The M7Yo on Falls Creek. Here we go. This will be a perfect way to show what the armor looks like. It's not really anything spectacular, but I was in a training room with a friend where I could at least talk about the tank. Now, this vehicle is very weird, and it's kind of disorienting to me because if you didn't know, the turret on this vehicle is actually in the roof. You can see that here. So when you turn the turret to the side, the smoke comes out of the side of the tank. I don't know why. It looks weird to me. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's also cool, so I don't mind it too much. Now, this vehicle carries the same type of gun that a T-29 has. Even though it looks like a stock M6 gun, it isn't. It does have a T-29 gun. Oh boy, you can see the lag of the replay there. That's probably not where I was actually aiming in that scenario, but yeah, the upper plate is quite weak. If you're aiming in on the upper plate on flat ground, you'll probably be able to pen it with most tier 8s, most tier 7s. It's just not a super thick upper plate. You can see that he went right through my upper plate as it was. The lower plate is obviously very weak, and the turret is super, super large, which makes it very vulnerable to pretty much any tank that's aiming at the side of it. Now, I'm not sure how the turret armor is, what the exact thickness of it is, because, well, sadly, Wargaming hasn't really shown us yet. There's no statistical values of these tanks on at least the actual armor itself, and I haven't really had enough time to look at it. But overall, I think that this is going to be a fun vehicle. It's got a decent gun, 310 average damage per shot. Seems like it's got decent armor, decent mobility. Overall, I just think it's going to be a decent tank. Kind of just rolls around with everything else I said. The accuracy's okay. The gun depression, though, man, is that bad. I think it's only 5 or 6 degrees. You're going to see that here, yeah. Gun depression is not great. That is one thing. Oh, by the way, that shot there. You're going to see that the turret is not super thick. That was a perfect example there. I don't know if I'm going to aim in. Come on, aim in. Aim. This is a perfect example to show how weak the upper plate is. We're aiming at pretty much about 10 degrees of gun depression there, and that upper plate is still pretty dang penetrable. The turret, while it is decently thick, again, like, look at how weak this upper plate is. So this is a perfect example to show how non-existent armor's on this vehicle's hull. The turret is great. You can see here the turret will be getting bounces, but it does have a cupola, which you can see I perfectly showed there, that you can penetrate. So, yeah, this vehicle, it's decent, but the gun doesn't seem great. And you're going to see here, the side of the vehicle is actually quite weak. There's no really HE-able spot. I don't know why it was bugging out there again, but there's really no HE-able spot on this vehicle, apart from the rear, as you can see there, and the side, flat side of the vehicle, right there. you can perfectly aim an HE on. And because this vehicle is sitting at only about 58 millimeters of HE pen, yeah, you're going to rip this thing apart if you've got higher alpha HEs, maybe 122s or anything else like that. So overall, I don't know what to say about the line. I think that it's going to be fun, but at the same time, it seems kind of boring. The HG textures look great, but I don't know. I just don't find anything spectacular about these tanks. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Obviously, if you enjoyed today's video and you want to see more like it, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below. But other than that, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.